Um, Thank you all. I am delighted to say our guest today is Richard Neal, CEO of Suffolk FA. I work very closely with Richard on lots of different things that I do in my role with Needham Market and Suffolk schools. And one of the things that I always say to all you as students is in the football academy is not to pigeonhole yourself in football. Look at sports on the wider context, and Richard will talk about his career and what he's done to get to the point of CEO of Suffolk FA and what Suffolk FA do. So a lot of you will be looking at a career in sports development and maybe football development. So this is a great opportunity to hear what Richard's got to say, and then ask any questions at the end. So welcome, Richard.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear and see me okay. A bit about me. I've been with Suffolk FA now for coming up to 4 years. And I've always played football since I was 8 years old, probably even before then. And just over the park with mates. Jumpers for goalposts, spikes for goalposts, lampposts for goalposts, whatever it took to get a pitch marked out and to get a game going on. Sometimes it was 4 aside, sometimes it was 14 aside, sometimes it was 24 aside, and it all really depended. And then I joined a proper football team when I was 8 years old. That was in Essex, and I started off playing here, there and everywhere, as everyone always does. It doesn't really matter where you play at that age, but was always tall. So my natural position was obviously, and right-footed, so my natural position was obviously left wing. And that's where I played up until I was about 13 or 14. And then we got a new manager, and his first training session when they started, he came up to me and said, "You're tall, you're slow, you're very right-footed. We think you should play centre-back rather than left wing." And my heart was absolutely broken because I thought I was marauding up and down that left wing. But turns out I really wasn't. And moved to centre-back, played centre-back for the rest of my career. I say career, that makes it sound like it's like quite good, but it wasn't. I played at a really bang average of the game on a Saturday afternoon and a Sunday morning. Most of you on the call will already be significantly better players than I ever was, and yeah, I played most of my level of football for enjoyment as much as anything else. At about 27, I think it was, our manager decided to step down. He had been our manager since we were under 14s, I think it was. He said he stepped down. He didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't want to commit the time to it anymore. And everyone kind of looked around and said, "Well, we want to carry on. Who's gonna do all the admin work? Who's gonna convene everybody every Saturday?" And I said I'd do it. So was player manager. Again, that sounds a little bit more grandiose than what it was, but was player manager from when I was 27, and then eventually we packed in and stopped because people got shift work, people couldn't commit. It became very difficult to try and convene a side, and we all decided to stop about early 30s. Most of us. Most of us played for the same side. So there was about 6 players who stopped playing when we were early 30s, who started playing when we were 8 years old. And that really kind of underpins my football philosophy, and my philosophy probably in a really general sense. And I'll expand on this a little bit more as we go through. But to me, the most important thing about football in my life is that I'm still mates with everybody who joined that football team when I was 8 years old. I'm 37 now, and I wouldn't be mates with all those people. I wouldn't still have the friendships. I wouldn't have the connections that I do now without football. I'll expand on that a little bit more, but that to me is the heart and soul of football. Not necessarily the winning and the relegation or the promotion or the cup runs, etc., and the things that people kind of concentrate on more. So that was a bit about my football kind of playing days and kind of how I got then into management and more interested in the management of people side from a kind of school education and job perspective. I didn't go to university, so I done my GCSEs, got good grades, but probably should have got better grades. Went and done A-levels at the local college, and again got okay grades, but didn't get brilliant grades, and didn't go to university despite all my teachers saying that I should go. I knew that there was an undercurrent from my parents that believed that I should go or wanted me to go. But I didn't go because at the time it wasn't right for me. I didn't think it was right. I didn't want to stay in education. I wanted to go out and do something a bit, and kind of out into the wide world a little bit. But I didn't have a clue what that was. And all the time through school, and college, people kept asking me, what do I want to do when I leave school or college? And I had no idea how to answer that question. I never had any frame of reference about how to answer that question, because to me, when someone asks you, what do you want to do? Your first thought is to come up with job titles, basically, is to come up with, I don't know, pilot or doctor or dentist or, whatever it is. But you only know the job titles that you only know, and the ones that are really obvious, the police officers and fire services, etc. But no one ever says that no one ever grows up and says, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to be a chief executive, because there's chief executive of all kinds of organizations. There's chief executive of all kinds of businesses. And I really wish at that point someone had sat down with me and asked me, what do I enjoy doing? And what really motivates me to do my best. And the things that I would have said at that point are the things that I still would say today. That is making other people happy and proud, and helping them to make themselves happy and proud. Seeing other people improve and develop, problem solving, and making people understand and appreciate how important being active and physical activity is to their mental, physical, emotional well-being. If I'd have said that, then I believe, or if I'd have been asked that and been able to give that response, I believe that the people helping me would have been able to point me in a better direction than what they did, and really just left college not having a clue really what I wanted to do, what I was going to do. But fortunately enough, managed to get a job as a really startup person. Didn't have any qualifications, only an interest and hopefully an aptitude, with a coaching company. That was based in Colchester, and we used to go around schools and deliver what I thought was PE at that time. Deliver after school clubs. We used to do training sessions for clubs where maybe managers weren't confident enough to run training sessions themselves. So we used to go in and do that on their behalf. And then holiday camps during the holidays. And I was doing that when I left college at 18. And wasn't the most confident person by any stretch of the imagination. It was a very, very different and unsettling and uncomfortable position for me to be in for a start. But slowly but surely I managed to get the confidence and the competence to be able to lead groups of people, to be able to talk like this to groups of people, to be able to take assemblies and speak to teachers and speak to head teachers. And at that point, when I first started, I was not the most confident person in the world whatsoever. And from those kind of relatively humble beginnings, I think I learned an awful lot of skills that I still use now. And I don't underplay the importance of all that went on before. I stayed with the same coaching company for about 7 years. So I left when I was 25, and I got made redundant when I was 25. Which at that point was a huge, I can't say in any other way other than kick in the teeth, really. Because I'd stayed with this company for a long while. I was not massively ambitious. I didn't particularly, wasn't looking to move. I was quite happy doing what I was doing. And then the company made me redundant. And there was I specifically remember waking up one day. I was still living at my parents' house at that point. And it was a day not much different to today, but a bit warmer. And I'd been made redundant, and it was maybe a week later or something like that. And my dad always had high expectations of me, but never actually articulated them. You just knew. You just knew that there was an expectation on you to perform. Knew that he believed I had really high potential, and that I wasn't fulfilling that potential by working with this coaching company. And I remember waking up one morning, and I didn't know what time it was, and I went downstairs. It was clearly, it was daylight. It was light. It wasn't first thing in the morning by any stretch of the imagination. Went downstairs, went outside, and my dad, in my parents' garden, there was a huge hedge, probably 20 foot high, twice as long, massive hedge. And my dad, who had worked all his life at the same dock company, I just remember him looking at, he cut this whole hedge. So it wasn't early in the morning, and I'd just woken up and stumbled downstairs. And he probably didn't mean to, but I just remember he looked at me with this absolute look of disappointment that I would have and will never, ever forget. He probably didn't mean to, and it probably wasn't. It was, I don't know, sun was in his eyes, or he was, trying to get the leaves out of his from his glasses, whatever it was. He probably didn't look at me or mean to look at me like that. But that's how I interpreted it, and probably because I was a bit disappointed in myself as much as anything else. And from then, really, I decided that I needed to buckle up and needed to start fulfilling some potential that I kind of always knew I had, but had never really had the drive or ambition to go and explore and exploit. So that day I applied to work for another coaching company in Suffolk, got an interview within the week, went and had the interview and got the interview, and then got the job. I think I was with them for about 2 months, and then I started to see other positions that became available in district councils and in local authorities. And one that I went for was assistant sports development officer. They don't have those anymore, sadly, or have roles like that anymore, really, in local authorities. But I had one with Mid Suffolk, so I was based in Needham Market, and got that job. Which was much more office-based and was much more about organising things for other people. I was organising coaches, I was organising sessions, I was organising holiday programs, not delivering the activities. And then doing other things that I didn't even know existed, working on Suffolk Youth Games. Some of you might have even played in the Suffolk Youth Games and participated in the Suffolk Youth Games. I was doing that for the district. We were working on things like facilities and what was going to be the future of our facilities, and with all different sports, but still primarily with kind of young people focused, because that was the role in particular. And that opened my eyes to so much that I didn't know existed. I knew football. I knew what happened with football clubs. I didn't really have an appreciation of what was going on in swimming clubs or in bowls clubs or in cricket clubs, or in hockey clubs, or in tennis clubs, or in netball clubs, or in table tennis clubs. All of this network, I didn't have a clue. And it also opened my eyes to a whole profession that I had no idea existed. This whole idea of sports development and community development using sport, I had no idea existed. I didn't know what role the county council had. I didn't know that there was something called, it was then Suffolk Sport, and now is called Active Suffolk. I had no idea anything about Sport England. I had no idea about national organisations like UK Coaching or anything like that. I was completely naive to it. So it was an absolute eye-opener. And I really quickly became obvious that if I knuckled down and really worked hard to deliver my job and try to do more than just my job, put myself in positions where I was doing extra, there was a whole labyrinth of a profession that I could go into that I had no idea was there before, and all of those would open different doors and new opportunities to things that I was completely naive before. So I joined. There was a whole strategy around school sport at that point that the county council were involved in, called the PESIP strategy, PE, school sport for young people. And I joined one of the strands of that, even though I was very new into the profession. I joined one of the strands of that because I felt like I had something to contribute and wanted to extract as much information from that and learning from that and get the connections and meet people that I'd never met before. So I met the PE advisor for Suffolk County Council. I didn't even know at that point that there was a PE advisor at Suffolk County Council. But I met him and built a relationship and got to know them very, very well. And went out of my way to do everything that I possibly could that was above and beyond my job. And one thing that's hopefully consistent through my career and what I try and tell my staff is that if you only do your job, if you only do the bits that you are kind of told to, then people will only ever think you can do your job. They won't think you can do more than your job. They won't think you can go beyond that and move up to the next level and move up to the next progression. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be prepared to do things on your own back, in your own time, off your own initiative, to progress yourself forward. Because if you only ever do what you can do, that's all you'll ever be able to do. From there, I moved to, I stayed with Mid Suffolk District Council, joined all these other groups for about 3 years, I think it was. And then I moved to work for Suffolk Sport. I initially joined as coaching development manager. Never even knew that was a title. That probably wasn't a title when someone asked me back in school or college what I wanted to be. I would never have said a coaching development manager. What was the role? The role was to help coaches to improve so that they could deliver a better service to their participants in whatever sport that might be, whether that was football, table tennis, netball, any other, badminton, any other sport that you can name. And I really enjoyed that because it was part of my core values. I like helping people improve so that they can go and improve other people, and really enjoyed that. And then there was a national initiative which is still going. Again, some of you might have played in it or participated in it, called the School Games, that came out as a government initiative, and Suffolk had to kind of initiate this whole School Games network after a change of government, and we needed someone internally to do all that because we didn't have the capacity within the organisation to do all that when it first came out. So I put my hand up and said, "I'll do it." It was going to be extra work. It was going to be it was going to be unpaid at that point, or it wasn't going to be for any extra pay at that point. But I thought, if I can show that I can do this, if I can prove that I can go and put this whole new governmental program in place, working with all different partners, working with all different people, working with schools, working with education, working with sports clubs, working with councils, working with all kinds of different organizations, then that would really show me in really good light and a really good perspective. So I stuck my hand up and said, yeah, I'll do it. And they said, yes, okay, grand, off you go. This is what you need to do. This is what the end point is. This is where we need to be. This is when we need it to be by. Go and do it. Tell us how you're gonna go and do it, and keep us informed. But get on with it. And the first the school games was, you have local competitions, and then the winners of those local finals come and play in a county-wide competition. And we tried to hold lots of county competitions on the same day, so it was almost like a mini young person's Olympics in Suffolk. Probably over-egging it slightly, but that's what we tried to make it. And we tried to have an opening ceremony, we tried to have bands playing, flags, we tried to have a parade, make it feel like it was really special. The first one that we held, we had everything set up. Everybody was ready and waiting around the athletics track in Bury. We had everybody waiting for the parade. We had flowers that we'd arranged. We had people waving flags. And about, no joke, 10 minutes before it was due to start, and we were due to start at this parade, it absolutely hammered down. And I mean hammered down with everything that the sky could offer. So it was bedlam, absolute bedlam. People running into sports centres, people running into gyms, people running into here, there and everywhere. And my plans had gone completely to pot. They were ripped up, and you had to completely rip up and start again. And I didn't really, I had a bit of a plan of what to do if it rained in such kind of Armageddon way, but I hadn't really communicated that very well. So I knew it, but nobody else did. And all of a sudden, we were faced with the position where I was having to tell everybody really much too late what to do. And that was a really valuable lesson, because I've never made that kind of mistake again. Well, I try not to, where you are underprepared for every eventuality, and you are covering all bases, and you think of what every possible outcome and every possible risk is when you're putting on sessions, when you're putting on events. And that's even more prevalent now when you've got viruses to think about, and all the other kind of risk assessment processes that we need to think about at the moment. So we delivered some of those, year on year, we delivered those school games. They got a bit better. We added different sports into it. We changed it. We held consultation with clubs and with schools to try and improve it, so that it wasn't just my thoughts, it was other people. And that ensured that they kind of bought into it, that it wasn't just Richard dealing with this. It was everybody was dealing with it, and I was the person who was just facilitating their wishes. There was a little bit of me in it, but by and large, tried to make sure that it was me just facilitating what they wanted. We included the London 2012 torch within that, so there was some quite kind of big high security events that went on that were included as all part of that. And then I found a job in Oxfordshire, and there was a job advertised that was basically the next level up in Oxfordshire. And I was, at that point, I was able to move away pretty easily without having too many considerations. I'd never been to Oxford before. I to be honest, if someone had put a map in front of me and said, where is Oxford, I'd probably have got it wrong. So the first time I went for an interview, or first time I went to Oxford, was when I went to an interview in Oxford. Luckily got the job. It was a really different interview process than what I'd ever been through before. I really felt like you'd been put through the ringer You were there for a whole day. You met all the other candidates. It was really, really very different. And you had 3 or 4 steps or parts of the interview that you had to kind of pass in order to progress. It was really, really tough. And then worked in Oxfordshire, got the job, moved up to Oxfordshire, put everything in one car, moved up there. Didn't know anybody, didn't know anything about Oxford at all. Had lived in Essex on the coast for most of my life. Worked in Suffolk, but hadn't been anywhere else really. So it was quite a kind of big step. And for a little while I struggled. Didn't have a kind of foundation up there at all. Came back quite a lot at weekends, but eventually kind of got more confident, built a life up there, and didn't come back as much and stayed up there. And the job there was really more about bringing people together. It was about forming partnerships, about meeting other people, and creating relationships with other people based on mutual understanding, but based on just being available, just being nice, just being good, just being humble, just being willing to concede on people's wants, not going in there and saying, I want this is how you'll do it, because people will turn around and say, no, that's not how we'll do it, and you'll never get anything done. So really good lesson over those 3 or 4 years of what it meant to work in partnership, what it meant to work together. And after 4 years there, I moved back to Suffolk FA and took over the chief exec job. My first chief executive job, my first job in charge of the whole organisation. What I was met with was an organisation that needed to improve, that needed an awful lot of work to improve internally and then to improve our relations externally. Just for example, the opinion, and it might still residually be available now, is that Suffolk FA never went to matches. You would never see anybody at games. So I've tried over the last 3.5 years to make sure that I go to a game somewhere in the county every week. That's obviously not been easy for the last 12 months, or not been possible for the last 12 months. But for the rest of it, I've managed to get to at least one game somewhere of some level in Suffolk, whether that's coming to watch Needham, whether that's coming to watch the under-18s, or whether that's going on a Sunday afternoon to watch the Vets game or to watch the women's game. I try and go to one game every week so that we are visible, so that people know that we care, frankly, and that we are in it, not just to take money and fines and sanctions out of the game, but we are in it because we want to see the game improve. I've listened to 1 or 2 others, or I've seen 1 or 2 other snippets from colleagues that have been on these calls before, and I've heard several times now that when people are recruiting, what they look for, and they look for people that are experienced, or people that have put themselves out there, people that have done more than what they needed to, some people that have volunteered, some people that have contributed and done something where it was completely off their own back. We look for people and life skills, and we don't necessarily look for grades, and we don't necessarily look for qualifications. And I'm fortunate to be able to do that because I don't work in a situation. I'm not a heart surgeon. If I was recruiting heart surgeons or brain surgeons, then qualifications matter. But in sports development, what I look for is personality. I look for people that have been able to put themselves out there and got some experience and willing to do the extra mile. And really I look for someone who shares the same values and who understands what their personal values are, who has done the homework on what the company values are, and shows an aptitude to mirror those together. And it's really important, I think, when we try and make our recruitment process friendly, so that it's not, it doesn't feel like it's an interview, but it doesn't feel like an interrogation. And we try and make people feel comfortable when they come to an interview, that it's a discussion, and we try and give you the best opportunity to get yourself over and put yourself across in the best possible way. And it's not a case of we ask you a question, you give us an answer, I don't give you any feedback at the time, and then ask you another question and then another question, and you don't have any idea about how it's going, because I don't think that's the right way to get the right people into the organisation. I said that Suffolk FA, we do a difficult job, but not a complicated job, and there are several factors to it. There are several things that we concentrate on. We've got 14 just about individuals in the team, and we try and balance off the discipline and sanction and governance of the game, which gets an awful lot of attention, because that's the part that if people get sent off, then that's the part that sanctions people or bans people from playing. If people push a referee or call someone something inappropriate, then that's the bit that gets an awful lot of attention, because that's the side of the business that stops people playing. And then we've got the other side of the business that is trying to get more people playing, which is doing stuff like Wildcats programs for 5 to 11-year-old girls to try and get more girls in the game, which is doing disability football and try and get more people with disabilities into the game, feeling more comfortable that the game is for them. We do an awful lot of work on walking football, because Suffolk has got an ageing population. So walking football is really, really important. And an awful lot of work with schools, with Rob and the Suffolk Schools Association. So we have a really wide-ranging breadth of work that we focus on. And part of the work over the last 3 years is to try and emphasise all of the positive points more than the negative points of governance and sanctioning. And we've still got work to do on that, because it still gets significantly more. We've got 3 people who work on governance and sanctioning, and essentially the rest of the team, 11 people, who work on development, on work art, who work on trying to get more people involved in the game, celebrating volunteers, providing funding support to clubs. But we still get more focus in lots of cases on those 3 people than we do on the other 11. And that's a real push to try and make sure that we get that balance right, that we get the focus on the 11 and less focus on those 3 people. And we also justify sanctioning people, because I used to play in a league, in a Sunday league in Clacton. And there was one team in it who nobody wanted to play against and nobody wanted to referee, because it was going to be an awful experience. They would kick you off the park. They would do anything to intimidate you. They would do anything to intimidate referees. You would come away risking injury, frankly, and nobody did anything about them. And now the league is closed because nobody wanted to play against them, and everybody, one by one, slowly, referees included, came out. So our work to try and protect the game, to make it as fun and enjoyable as possible, includes trying to make sure that those people who have broken the rules understand that they've broken the rules and are sanctioned in accordance with the rules and laws that are laid out. That's not a popular part of the job, don't get me wrong, and it's one that we continue to try and balance off, but that's how we try and justify it. As well as working for Suffolk FA and all of the professional career stuff that I've talked about, for 3 years now, I've been the vice chair of a national association who looks after PE in schools, called the Association for PE, AFP. The 3 years before then, I was just a normal board member or a trustee, which is of a charity. And I was co-opted for a year before then onto the board. And I was asked to join the board because I had a different skill set from what was included already. And I joined the board because I wanted to get as much out of that experience as what they wanted to get out of me. And again, that's another example where I've tried to put myself in a position that was off my own back. It's completely voluntary. still is voluntary. And it's another example of me trying to do something which opens my eyes, which opens my opportunities in a completely different environment, gives me new skills, exposes me to things that I've never even knew existed before. We're dealing with government now. We're talking with Department for Education. I'm dealing with the ministers and the MPs in the various different government departments. No, it's me. I'm Richard from Harwich with not a university degree and come out of a small place in Essex. So it's quite a kind of sit on the train or whatever on the way home, and it's quite a you kind of think, how have I got to this? And I know I've got to this. I've got to this by putting myself in positions where maybe the reward isn't obvious, but you get your name out there, you get your face out there, and you expose yourself to different opportunities and different learning experiences than what you've had before. So I would always recommend trying to look for ideas, look for avenues, look for ways that you can push yourself, you can do things that you can't already do, and I know that the team at Needham Market will help you along the way with that. So that's probably enough for my ramblings, Rob. I'm happy to take any questions and field any thoughts and expand on anything else that anybody wants me to.
You probably actually did touch upon it slightly, is with regards to our students progressing on from like their BTEC course with us at Needham. What opportunities would there be possibly within the Suffolk FA for our students to explore after they've completed their course? How would they gain that sort of experience required?
Yeah, so I think there's lots of opportunities within football as a whole, Matt, as well as potentially with Suffolk FA. Things like can you contribute to a league committee? Can you contribute to is there a youth committee at a club that you can lead and you can kind of get involved in? Refereeing is a really good one, because we've got referees, and I know that's not the most popular kind of can raise an eyebrow sometimes, but we've got referees who were 14 years old when they qualified, and their parents said that they were really not very confident, that they needed to come out of their shell a little bit, and that they needed some kind of life lessons and some life development, who are now some of the best referees in Suffolk and getting paid significant amounts, and have brilliant careers outside of football. So I think refereeing sometimes gets underplayed or underappreciated, because frankly sometimes you turn up at games and you get a bit of abuse for the whole time. But the life skills and the qualities that people develop as referees is really important. With Suffolk FA in general, we've got our youth council, and we've done some football futures programs as well. And if you look at people from our youth council who have been on our youth council in the past, someone like Che Hathaway now currently he works for the FA in their refereeing department, and develop those skills, develop the kind of competencies that they were looking for by working with the youth council. Isabel Chaplin, who is currently the chair of the youth council, is also the secretary of the Girls and Women's League. She refereed the Women's Cup final last year that Needham were in, was held at Needham. And she's gone on and done all kinds of work with explorer groups and venture groups that she would never ever have done before. Jordan Kawamia actually got a job with us as a result of his work within the youth council. And what does the youth council do? It really makes sure that that our work is ensuring that it's really child focused, and there's obviously a huge push on that at the moment to make sure that the game is friendly and available and welcoming and appropriate for children, especially in light of what's come out over the last couple of days. So there's details of the youth council on our website. I'm sure Rob will be able to pass those on as well. And yeah, that would be a really good idea for interested members of the group.
Brilliant, thank you.
Obviously, you've said that your main sport was football, and then going into profession, and then when you got the job in Oxfordshire, what was one of the biggest challenges that you found with other sports that that didn't go with the football knowledge that you had?
It's interesting. Most sports tend to have the same problems, but they all think that they're unique. So attracting volunteers tends to be a common thread across all sports, because, and in my opinion, it's because we frame volunteering in the wrong way. We ask for people to give up their time, and the immediate reaction is, I haven't got any time to give you. Whereas if we ask for people to give up their expertise, which is a much more seductive request, people will give their expertise because that's attractive. I'm giving you something. You're brushing my ego a little bit with it. Whereas if you just ask for my time, I'm going to turn around and say, no, I haven't got any. There was a big thing with when I worked with swimming clubs in Suffolk in particular, because swimming clubs don't own the facility, they rent the facility off of the local council, because that's their council swimming pools. And lots of the relationships were based on the swimming club would only talk to the pool if the showers were too cold or the lane ropes weren't out, and the pool would only talk to the swimming club if there was too much noise in the changing room and they were taking too long to get changed and the staff were wanting to close at the end of the day. So the relationship was always built on negative. The relationship was always built on someone having a moan to somebody else. They never had a discussion on, oh, the swimming club had a gala this weekend and 3 of our people came top 5 in their races. They never had a good relationship, relationship built on good points. It was only ever built on bad points. So as soon as we started to address that, as soon as we sat down with the pool manager and the kind of lead swimming coach or the chair of the swimming club, got them together and started talking about the good points that they brought to each other, all of a sudden those anxieties and those tensions between each other went away. And I still get that in football a little bit now, where some of our relationships are still built on things that are negative. And Suffolk FA probably had that as well. You know, we were only ever talking to clubs where we had problems with them, and clubs were only ever talking to us where they had problems with us. We weren't talking about how can we improve your facilities. We weren't talking in a general sense to all clubs about how can we help you, what do you want to do in the future, and where can we put our where can we help you to do that. And so we're trying now to have really positive conversations and feed in where there are things that might need to improve, where are things that might need to work on, feed those in, but in general make it a positive conversation or frame it in a positive way. And lots of sports will still talk about funding and money and how they run their business, and especially now exacerbated over what's happened over the last 12 months. You know, that's even more difficult, and that will be what the focus of, and included in football, will be of the next 2 or 3 games. The game and the sport in general, life in general, has been significantly affected over the last 12 months, and our job as a governing body, and every other sports job, will be to return the game to as much of a strength as what it was before, because that's not a foregone conclusion. People aren't just going to return like they stopped this time last year.
Hi Richard, thanks very much for your time, mate, and obviously I know you're really busy. I really appreciate it. It was really powerful listening to you, and what I took from it, and hopefully the students can as well, you don't get given anything, You have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to put in the hard yards to achieve. So hopefully they can take that from this. If you, and also, by the way, I love when you spoke about the interview process. I'm a big believer in people as well. Look, qualifications are great, but people and personality, and for me, just to say to the students, just be you. Nothing's going to be given to you. Just be you and follow your dreams and do it as best you can. If you could, and we often, I'm a big believer in looking forward, but we often at times look back. If you could do anything different, Richard, would you? Like what I mean by that, would you maybe prepare for what you're going to do a little bit younger, maybe? Or do you think the process of going through the journey that you did and a lot of people do, and you end up finding your way eventually?
Yeah, thanks, Kev. My immediate reaction has always been if I've been asked a similar question like that, my immediate reaction has always been whether I should have gone to university or not. And it was absolutely right for me at the time, but I do have this underlying concern that because I never went to university, whether I'm going to reach a glass ceiling, because every job that I go for or look at now says you need to be educated to degree level, and I'm not. So I've often thought about whether I should go back and do some sort of degree, whether that's night school or whether that's home learning, and spend a bit of time really focusing on getting those qualifications. I haven't done yet. And that's probably because I don't feel like I've reached that glass ceiling as yet, and whether I will do with my aspirations and my level of potential, I'm not sure. But that's the first thing that springs to mind. I wish I hadn't sat with the same company, comfortable, no drive and no ambition for 7 years now, just moseying along. I think it's really important that you get the scars on the way through and you learn from those experiences on the way through. But I wish I would have gone down and seen my dad cutting the hedge and look at me like I did several years before it happened. But hopefully I've tried to catch up on that and probably put myself out there. And look, I'll be honest, it has cost me some things along the way. Putting a great emphasis on work has cost me some things along the way. I have had to make sacrifices along the way. I moved away from my mum and dad to Oxfordshire to find a new job at a point where they were becoming unwell, and probably the point where they needed me more than I was available. But you have to make some decisions and sacrifices along the way, and try and then balance off and find the compromise as you're doing it. And but yeah, that probably the university thing and whether I should have stayed with the same company for so long at the start of my career before forging on is the first two that come to mind.
It was really good to hear you say about when you first started coaching as well, because I had the same emotions. It was daunting. It was scary. I was out of my comfort zone so much. It was frightening. I know I see a lot of young coaches actually doing it from a young age, but and again, that message I took from that was you are going to feel like that. So if there's any students here thinking I want to do this, but that scares me, I'm not sure I can. There's self-doubt. Even still, I have that. But I think that's a good thing, because that sort of pushes you on, and it was good to hear you say that, because it means I weren't the only one feeling all them emotions going into something and feeling uncomfortable. So thanks very much again, and again, the message to the students is the jobs or the top jobs like Richard's got, like Rob Peace's got, like Cookie and Sam have got, like I've got, we weren't just given them. So if you have aspirations, whatever that may be, and it might not be to be a chief executive, it might not be to be an academy director, whatever you want to do, take them steps and back yourself and be you. But I'm hoping the students have took a lot from this, Richard, and thanks again, and obviously good luck with everything you've got going on at Suffolk. I know it's not an easy job. You can't please everybody. So thanks very much for your time, mate.
Cheers, Kev. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we let Richard crack on with his busy day? No, I think you've covered it all, Richard. So firstly, our students and staff, we get to train and do everything on the hard work that Suffolk FA have done, helping us getting the 3G and everything. So we're rewarded with the work that Suffolk FA members of staff have done in helping us on our journey over the last 4 to 5 years on getting the facilities that we've got. And I would say on behalf of Needham Market Football Club that you're doing a very good job, Richard, and the work that the whole team do now with the ethos that you've put in with your staff and your team is all of Suffolk football will be rewarded with that. So yeah, many thanks on that. So on behalf of everyone within Needham Market Academy, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rob. Best of luck, everyone.